So, guys, our first what if question today, brought to you by Steve Becker. Thanks for the ideas. Is what if Art Modell never moved the Browns?
We have some championships. We would have had Ray Lewis. We'd have had Ed Reed. Man, we'd have had the best defense known to man.
No, I don't. I've thought about this.
Oh, here you go. Man, we would have had a ring. Don't do that. Don't say we wouldn't have.
Listen, I think the catalyst when Art Modell moved, I think it changed his mindset on a lot of different things. I think it did, bro. Like, I think it made him be like, okay, like.
Jason's going to agree with you.
Like, it's just, because look, you think about it. Would he still have hired Ozzie Newsome, right? That's the catalyst.
Why would he not?
That's the thing for me.
Why wouldn't he?
Because you gotta
he
think
was
about
a great player for you. What are you talking about?
If they don't move, I think he would have kept Bill Belichick.
No, I think that had run it.
I don't know. Yeah, I was young.
This is
I was young.
This is a really complicated conversation to have because there's stadium deals involved, and it goes far beyond just what if they never moved. Well, the reason they moved is because he was broke, and he was broke in part because Dick Jacobs left and they built their own stadium, and he lost a little bit of revenue with that. He was just out of money. And, I mean, he had to take out a loan to pay Andre Rison's contract. He had to go to the bank and get a loan to pay. That's insane for an NFL owner. He's the one guy in the NFL that, like, couldn't make money. So if the Browns never leave, if the Browns don't move, well, then the Guardians probably move. The Indians are probably in Florida. If that whole ballot issue is, like, this is just such a tangled
web. It's a great story.
It's a tangled conversation to have. There was an opportunity at one time for them to build another multi-use stadium. That was part of the discussion, and Art wasn't interested. And so, I mean, if the Browns never left, if something got done where they were able to build a second stadium for them, which they barely got Gateway Pass by the skin of their teeth, and the only reason they got Gateway Pass was because they brought the Cavs from Richfield, and they gave them an unbelievable deal to get them out of Richfield, because the mayor didn't want to do it for just a baseball stadium. The mayor, Michael White, didn't care about sports. He didn't care about the stadium. But when you talk about bringing the arena downtown and concerts and the revenue that would generate from having a downtown arena, well, that's what brought the mayor on board with the plan. But in order to do that, you had to get the Cavs involved. So it's such a mess of a conversation of, like, it's not as simple as what if the Browns never moved.
And I don't.
So what if Art Modell had money?
Well, I mean, if Art wasn't a horrible businessman, then yeah, I mean, Bill probably still gets fired because that decision was made. I don't know. That's a good point, though, because they went to Baltimore and they, like, wanted to start fresh. And they brought Ted Marchibroda in as the coach.
If you're here and you're invested, you have more time to say, okay, let's see this through a little more. I mean, because think about it. You had already got rid of Kozar. You've already given the keys to Bill. And Bill, when you look at the staff he had, put together, I mean, he had one of the best staff of young coaches to ever be assembled. Yeah. And if you look at it and you say, give it a couple more years.
And part of the reason it unraveled was because the news broke that the team was leaving. Yep. And the whole thing just fell apart on him.
So the question is, I guess what we extrapolate is, do you think they would have been more successful?
Say again?
If you give them time, they never leave, do you think they get, because the question is, do they get over the hump at some point?
Well, if Ozzie's here, yeah, they probably, and there's no reason to, if Ozzie went with Art to Baltimore, he surely would have had the job here. So, yeah, I think if Ozzie was really the architect to a lot of what they did.
And Ozzie, so I look at it, Ozzie was pretty much, he was the guy. Like, if Bill is still here, who was the GM when Bill was here?
Lombardi was at one point. I don't remember the exact, like the last year. I don't remember if it was Mike Lombardi or not.
Because Bill eventually got to the point where he had developed to a point where he was the general manager, the de facto general manager, the de facto head coach, the de facto defensive coordinator. I don't know if he would have had those same aspirations in Cleveland. Do you think eventually he would have said this was always on his career path that he wanted to do, to control
Bill?
picking player. Yeah.
I think any coach wants that. Once they garner the respect and the credibility to do it, every coach wants to say so in who you're acquiring and where you're putting them.
Yeah, it's a
They
difficult
got
question,
some
Tyvis.
that's some input. I feel like coaches got input,
Sure.
but they ain't making the decision. I tell you that.
I could see. I honestly, people say all the time. I can see why Art Modell left. I can. Now look,
Why you gotta say it like that?
because a lot of people think it's sacrilege to say like he should have never moved the Browns, should have never moved the team, blah blah blah. But you got to look at
He
it
was broke. He had no choice.
like if you got, and plus you got to look at it like this. If I come in, right, and they say, G. Bush, you know what? We doing negotiations with shoe contracts. And they said, listen, we're going to take care of Tyvis and we're going to take care of Jason. So Jason get the Balenciaga deal, and then Tyvis, he comes in and he gets a Tom Ford deal. I'm like, oh, they doing a designer up here.
I'm up
They
here in
winning.
GQ, ain't I?
Then they come up and say, yo, and they say, just hold on. We ain't got it in the budget yet, but we got some for you in the back. Okay, cool. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
We wait to the top of the year, and they come out and be like, yeah, we got this Puma deal for you. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. I'm hot. Now I'm hot. I'm hot. I don't even want to show up no more.
Why?
Because, bro, you going to play me like that.
Wait a minute.
The
It's
Puma
better
deal.
than nothing.
No, bro, and that's what the thing is.
It's better than nothing.
When somebody said nothing has ever turned out good when somebody said it's better than having nothing.
It is.
Because then you just that's why Art Modell was in his bag. They gave, and when these stadiums came out, think about this. When Jacobs Field came out, it was the talk of sports, Jason. They talked about how beautiful it was. It was a crown jewel, gateway. And then Art Modell is sitting there and he said, now look, at the time, if you think about it, if you flip it, the Guardians had never gave you nothing in terms of play. Like, they've never given you anything as far as making the playoffs. Art looking at it like this. I've been the man since 85.
That's
86,
true.
87, 88, 89. We one win away. You know, like, so now, and my team playing in this dump. And it was trash, too. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
You went?
No. I went in.
Did you go?
No.
Are you old enough to have been to the old Browns?
Oh, I was there all the time.
It was bad.
It was bad.
Dang.
I was just pulling up the story that Zach Meisel and I wrote on this a couple years ago. There was a toilet that leaked into Art Modell's office in the stadium.
It's crazy.
Dang. So the Indians got a new stadium. The Cavs got a new stadium.
And they weren't even supposed to be in it.
But the Browns get nothing.
The Browns, and then he's left holding the bag. It gets to be about 95.
What sport was more popular? Was this back when baseball was America's
No.
sport?
This is still NFL. The Browns at that time, I would say, were you correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Browns at the time were one of the most popular teams in the league.
Oh, for sure.
And they couldn't get no money?
Popular. They were. I had to go back and watch the game.
I don't want to say to Art's credit, but from the Browns' perspective on this, they warned the city and the county for over a year. Something has to be done with the stadium, and they didn't take it seriously. And they said the Browns will never move. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, and so they didn't react until it was almost too late from the city side of things.
I remember Michael White trying to stir up, like, it was weird because he was like putting the collection plate out. Like, he was doing weird stuff. Like, he was like trying to, he was trying to put the collection plate out.
We're going to take the plate around one more time.
Man, no, we're not. Listen, you're supposed to have your stuff in order, bro. Like, they got the collection plate. Obviously, the Browns had already had to move it in tow and ready to go. And then it was just like, it kind of hit everybody. And to what Jason was saying earlier, in 95, they had started out.
Man, I was 1 year old.
It was one. It was crazy. And I wasn't that old. I was, 14?
1 year, baby.
14?
95, 1 year. Yeah.
They started off that year well. I think they started off like 4-1 or something. Like, they started off really good. News broke. went all to hell.
Yeah.
Like people were saying, I gotta move. I'm trying to tell my wife, I gotta move my kids. People trying to take their kids out of school. Like the fans is letting them. Like it was.
Wait
just
a minute.
mess.
They try to take their kids out of school because the Browns moved?
What the guys were saying, we gotta move. Like I gotta.
Oh,
get my
you
kids
talking about the players? So I thought you talking about like random fans. I was
like
what?
they gotta take their kids out of school, and it's just weird.
Zach and I, when we wrote the story a couple years ago, Michael White would not return my calls. I reached out to him a couple times, the old Cleveland mayor. So Zach and I drove down to his winery in like Newcomerstown type area, about an hour and a half from here. And he was very polite and friendly until I introduced myself and told him who I was. And he basically said, finish your drink and get out.
That's
And
crazy.
Michael White would not talk to me about any of this. He had no interest in revisiting any of this. And it was just, it's unfortunate the way the whole thing went down. Art, like I said, Art was losing a ton of money to begin with. And then when he lost the Indians' revenue and the suite holders, they all went to Jacobs Field. They left him. He never dreamed that he would lose ticket revenue, but a lot of people that had suites, businesses that had suites at Old Stadium, left the Browns and went to Jacobs Field.
And to educate them a little bit so that it makes sense, what Jason's saying is Art Modell, he was leasing those games out to use the facility to the Indians, correct?
The Indians were a tenant, yeah.
Gotcha.
Art had the Stadium Corp deal. The Indians were a tenant basically to Modell and had to pay him rent. And then he lost that, and he lost the people who chose basically to go with the Indians rather than stay with the Browns. So he ended up losing a lot of money. But he still kept trying to renovate that old stadium. And even business leaders were like, why are you trying to renovate this thing? Let's try and build a new stadium. But they barely got Gateway passed.
Yeah.
I mean, barely got it passed. And the only reason they got it passed was because the Guns agreed to bring the Cavs back, but they made an unbelievable deal for themselves.
Wait, who decided to bring the Cavs?
The Guns.
The Guns, Gordon Gund.
Oh,
the
okay.
owner of the Cavs.
What was the
at
name
time.
of his place?
Gund Arena, the STD. And here we go. We just lost Tyvis for 6 minutes.
Yeah, there it goes.
But Gordon Gund negotiated an incredible deal because
I'm
they
so
owned everything in
immature.
Richfield. They owned the land, the building, all the parking, everything. So the city of Cleveland had to make an unbelievable deal to get them to come back downtown. And that's the only reason Gateway passed.
So basically,
Gordon Gund saved the Indians.
so the Indians didn't leave. Gunn came back, and now the only one left without a chair in this musical chairs is the Browns, and they got the good deals. And by the way, the people was burned out, and we're not giving you no more tax money.
Well, I'm about to say, present day, they trying to get a new stadium and they ain't going for it.
Well, and
And the mayor ain't moving. He said he ain't giving none of his public funding to y'all new stadium.
oh, you're talking present day.
Yeah, present day. Present day, yeah.
As you skip it forward and you
It's
pay
been
for it,
40 years from now, the same thing
and
is
the
going
same,
on.
you got a shoddy stadium. Now here's the problem: they got an owner that's richer than
Right.
the apostles.
I just stopped at Pilots. I just paid Deshaun Watson's contract.
See, there you go.
Got some gas at Pilot. I was like, that's for Deshaun. This for D. Wide.